As an adult, don't we all miss spring break? Nothing like taking a week off from all your responsibilities. Well, here's the next best thing for adults, a spring break from house payments. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of all your credit card debt just like that. We're routinely helping our listeners save $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. And you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but check this out, no house payments for 2 months at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.
Wow, Jay, I'm in the captain's seat.
I am the
I'm
captain
not used to
now.
I'm not used to being in the captain's seat, but
How does it
unfortunately,
feel?
fortunately, and unfortunately and fortunately, Conrad is on a plane. But the good news is I get to do this show with you. How about that?
That's right. How does the big chair feel? Is it, comfy?
In some ways, it's really comfortable because I do a lot of solo stuff, whenever I can, when the mood strikes, so to speak.
Right.
And I have fun doing that. It's pretty easy, especially when, you've got fans you're interacting with and all that. So when we're live, it's always fun. I love taking questions live. I love hearing people's funny comments and a lot of times really good questions.
Yeah.
So I've done enough solo, but not like this. This is different. Usually when I'm solo. Now I got a guest. So now I've got to be a traffic cop.
Yep.
And ask smart questions, which is always a challenge.
Good for you. You're pretty smart, my friend.
Sometimes I
We'll
wonder.
see. I've got a pad. I'm writing all down the smart ones.
So here's what we're going to do today, everybody. Because Conrad had to travel, there was just no way around it. When the opportunities knock, you do what you need to do. So we thought, okay, should we do a best of, where we just, put it all on Super Dave Silva and his team and go back and bring you some of the best clips from all the shows? That's actually kind of cool once in a while, but I don't like to lean on that. It's kind of just, feels like it's not putting in 100% effort. So we put our heads together. We said, wait a minute, no, the show must go on. You know that deal. Jason, you grew up with that. It's in your gene pool, for crying out loud. We're going to talk about that. But anyway, we said, okay, we got to do an interesting show, but it's got to be about wrestling. Well, who should that be? Got a list of go-tos, wrestling people with other podcasts, do each other favors. And that's all cool. I do that from time to time. But then I went, wait a minute. We've only scratched the surface with Bischoff Hervey Entertainment and that relationship and how it started and where Jason started and like, where the hell did this all come from? So I thought, wouldn't it be kind of fun if you and I sat down for a couple hours and just riff like we used to, Ashley, and kind of go back and take a look at Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling and all the things we've not talked about on a podcast. And then you, fortunately, jumped right in, said, absolutely, it'll be a blast, and here we are. So thanks, Jay. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Of course. You call, I answer. All good.
So let me start off. Jason has been in show business almost his entire life, like since he was
4.
Yeah, that's a long freaking time. And we're gonna take a little journey. We're gonna go through that time tunnel and see how you and I ended up actually even here today. Because it's really kind of a fascinating story, and not one that you would expect to find just in the normal course of business. So before we get into the showbiz part, what's your earliest memories growing up, and where did you grow up?
Grew up in Southern California in West Los Angeles. Easiest way to think of it is if you know where the UCLA college is in Westwood, not far from there. And when I was probably about 3 years old, was at my uncle's house, Uncle Howie, and I was fortunate enough to have very close relationships with my cousins, and, you know, tight knit Jewish family. You know, we do stuff all the time together. And my uncle had a friend that was a voiceover artist. And, you know, he would be at some of the family get togethers and stuff like that. And from the time I was 3 to the time I was 4, for about a year, he kept saying to my mom, "Hey, you know, Jason, you know, he's got chubby cheeks. He's, you know, this, you know, cute, outgoing kid. He's, you know, singing and dancing and, you know, making people laugh, blah, blah, blah. He should really think about, you know, doing commercials. You know, what would you think of that, Marcia?" My mom's name, may she rest in peace. And for about a year, he kept on my mom about this. And finally, my mom called my uncle, her brother, and said, "You know, you've got your college buddy, you know, who's always, you know, hanging around, and he's, you know, keeps saying to me, 'Oh, Jason should be in commercials. Let me just introduce you to my agent.'" And my mom said, "Well, you think he's just being polite? He, you know, what's do you think he's serious about it?" And my uncle said, "Well, I guess if you don't take him up on it, you will never know." So, my mom, took me, and Eric, I'm telling you, at 4 years old, I remember, you know, I remember parts of this, okay?
Right.
He, had a very small her name was Beverly Hecht, okay? She had a very small agency, right, you know, on Sunset, Eric, like where the Roxy and the Rainbow
Yeah.
is, like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So she had a little office above a nail salon, okay? That was, you know, right there on the Sunset Strip. And I remember walking up these very, very long, you know, flight of stairs with my mother. And when we got to the top of the stairs, which happened to enter into like her kind of lobby waiting area, like a receptionist, there's only like 2 offices. And Eric, it was like being in an episode of the show Mad Men, okay? It was like a time portal, okay? Even though it was daytime outside, it was very dark in there, and it was like smoky and like dimly lit. And I hear this lady's laugh, ah, 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 ah. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, is that like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain?" And the lady was like, "Jason Hervey," and, you know, my mom was like, "Oh, that's us." And, you know, my ma, she takes me, you know, in, and Beverly, you know, like when you see in those movies, like those old, you know, Judy Garland movies, like the women that would smoke cigarettes had them in a, you know, in like like
Oh, a
a holder.
cigarette holder. Yeah, like
Yeah, yeah,
Cruella
yeah.
DeVille.
Yeah, Cruella DeVille. Thank you. Exactly. Cruella DeVille. Yeah. So she had this like Cruella DeVille style cigarette holder. And I remember her chair had like this leopard print on it. Okay. And she's sitting there, you
This
know,
is like a
puffing
scene
away.
out of a really cheesy Hollywood movie.
I'm telling you, it is. It was my life. So the lady goes, Beverly Heck, she goes, "Come here, sit on my lap." Okay. That would probably never happen, you know, today
No.
in
Oh, no, it
violation
probably
of
does. We won't read about it until the depositions.
amazing. And yes. So anyway, so I go over there, like I sit on her lap, and I just remember the smell like of her perfume. It was,
Yeah.
you know, it was poured on. And she was like, you know, made some kind of small talk, and she was like, "I think I could, you know, we could make a fortune together," or something like that. And I signed with her, and I remember I booked my very first commercial, literally like 2 weeks later, and it was for it was for a Japanese ketchup commercial. Okay. And I remember kind of like being on the set, you know, little bits and pieces, as I'm saying. And I remember I was supposed to like eat a bite of this hamburger that had, you know, this ketchup smeared all over it. And I, you know, take a bite, and I just remember this bucket being there, that I take a bite and delicious, and then spit it in a bite of the hamburger.
So
But
hold that thought right there,
yeah,
because you covered a lot of ground, and there's a couple of points I want to go back to, and then we're going to
okay,
take some questions from the audience
okay,
that are watching live here on YouTube. By the way, thank you very much for joining us here on 83weeks.com live. I love doing live shows. Bonus points here. My buddy Jason's with us, and we're going to talk some stuff that's all eventually going to have something to do with wrestling. So hang in there. It'll be worth the wait. But you kind of passed over your uncle, and briefly, because this isn't going to be a biopic quite yet, but your uncle, aside from encouraging your mother, who eventually went on to become an agent herself, and that's going to be a cool
yes,
story to tell. I want to make sure we cover that, because I loved your mom. She was awesome,
she loved
and
you.
and I got along with her great. I felt like family, and your dad.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that too. But um, Howie, your Uncle Howard, your mother's brother, kind of a big damn deal in the entertainment business, but on the business side of the
yeah,
entertainment business, right? Just briefly describe Uncle
yeah,
Howie.
yeah. Briefly, and I won't get into his client list, but my uncle is one of the biggest business managers in the entertainment business, and basically what that means is he takes a percentage of your income and then oversees your investments, and just as basically your wealth and financial advisor, business manager, etc. And his client list is a list, through and through. um and um
And he's
and
been
he
doing it for a long time
oh
at a
yeah,
very
yeah,
high level,
yeah,
and
since the early
manages the
60s.
portfolios of some of the biggest names in Hollywood, and has for
Yeah,
decades. So
yeah,
I say
yeah,
all that because that dovetails into later on in this story, Bischoff Hervey Entertainment, how we were
yeah,
able to make so much progress so fast. It really has a
yeah,
lot to do with relationships.
yeah.
And you came to the table with a boatload of high value relationships. But thank you for covering Howie. And
Sure.
your mom, Marcia, um, at this point obviously was not an agent because she helped you find an agent.
That's right, that's right.
When did Marcia jump into the biz of the agent business?
If you will, if you will. Yeah, so it was right around, I think, first year of the Wonder Years. So I'm around 16 years old. And my mother was kind of like the go-to mom, on the set. And for whatever reason, whether it be a contract negotiation issue, whether it was talent relations, whether it was endorsements, I don't know. Just my mom, had a knack, for the biz, and raising me, being around it, and just having that
So that
business
explains a lot,
sense.
Jay. That explains a lot because just for real, you have such a innate and intuitive sense for the business of the entertainment business. I mean, it stands out amongst all of the people I've done business with
Thanks.
for any length of time. So it's a compliment meant to be, deserved one. However, it is what it is. It's the last thing that I would expect out of a kid that grew up as an actor, because that's a life, that's a career, and a lifestyle at the level that you played at that doesn't require you needing to know much. In some cases, people want to prevent you from knowing too much. But here, your mom's taking you out on calls before she's an agent. She's probably figuring out, I can do that. I don't need to pay them for something I can do. I'm guessing, just knowing your mom, the thought probably flashed across her mind at one point or another. It's just kind of cool to see how that one suggestion from your uncle, who had influence, to your mom, becoming an agent. I think that's, as well as your career. It's just kind of fun.
All right, I've got a little public service announcement for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. Let me break it down for you. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and over 700,000 hotels and properties around the world where you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you aren't earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/83weeks. That's joinbilt.com/83weeks. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. That's joinbuilt.com/83weeks to start earning points on your rent payments today.
It looks like we might have lost Jason's signal. I'm going to try to get that back right now, but there he is.
Oh, we had him. We lost him.
Let's go ahead and throw you some questions.
Yeah, give me a couple questions while we're waiting for Jason to get back on the rocket ship here. That was such a fun conversation, man. I was just getting going. All right, what do we got here? Scorpion Fan 21. What up, Eric? How would Logan Paul do in WCW back then? I think Logan Paul would have easily stepped into any era of wrestling and figured it out just as quickly as he does now. He's one of a kind. It's incredible how somebody with no background can jump into the industry at such a high level under so much scrutiny and over deliver on a consistent basis. So there you go. Jason, welcome back, brother.
We had a technical glitch. All of a sudden, I saw you talking and I was gone. But, hey.
Anyway, I was putting over your mother, and I was also putting over you for learning so much about the business side of the entertainment business from such a young age. Exposure, repetition, keeping it just the stuff you hear while you're a little kid sitting in the back of the car and your mom's talking to somebody because there were no cell phones back then. And she's having a conversation with somebody in the car about the business side of the business. That stuff sinks into your brain, sticks with you, whether you know it or not.
No, and to your point, like a lot of times during, when we were on the Wonder Years, a lot of time, and I know you want to cover that, but a lot of times during the lunches, when everyone else was, playing around and doing whatever it is they were doing on their lunch hour, I was, upstairs in the writer's room and with the producers and directors, and I would ask them if it was okay if I could eat my lunch, there with them. And, just from a very early age, even though I was in front of the camera, I think it is because I grew up with, my mother, having this, instinct for business and then handling every facet of my, career to a certain point. Then her launching her agency, my uncle being my business manager since I was 14 years old. I always just gravitated more towards the business, even though I was an actor and I was in front of the camera.
That's really cool. And it explains a lot. Let's put it that way. So your mom's an agent. She's obviously representing you. That agency, I'm guessing, grew pretty quickly knowing your mom.
Yeah. She partnered with, there's an actor. I don't know if any of you guys have seen, remember the movie Ted with Mark Wahlberg and the bear? Okay. So Ted has a series now on Peacock going into its second season. Scott Grimes plays the father. He's been a working actor, like me, pretty much his whole life. I was good friends with Scott, and Pam, coming from the East Coast and Boston and moving out to Los Angeles to support her son's dreams and all of those things, through our friendship, much like my friendship with the Liveleys, with Blake Lively and Jason Lively and Robin Lively, there was a friendship, of formed there, because none of us could drive cars at the time. So, parents, I'll pick them up, I'll drop them off, this, that, and the other. Well, my mom ended up partnering with Pam Grimes, and they launched their agency, Hervey Grimes Talent. And one of her early discoveries was Jonah Hill, which is
Oh,
a big one.
really?
Yeah. Mom represented Jonas for Jonah for 10 years.
Wow.
And then, he just became, as he should, there was no hard feelings, no anything, weird or, conspiratory, but it was time. It was time for him to move on.
Oh, no. When you get to
Yeah.
that level, when you're playing with that much of other people's money, you've
Yeah.
got to have a powerhouse behind you
100%.
that's got a whole legal staff. And I
Yes.
mean, yeah, it's a different game at that level.
Yeah, without a doubt. But yeah, she had Casper Van Diem from Starship Troopers, and she really focused on not necessarily booking the star of the movie, but maybe 6 out of the 10 co-stars were probably hers.
And a lot
'cause
easier to deal with than the star.
That's right, and those people worked all
Because
the
they were
time.
grateful for the opportunity. The star was like, I deserve this. Come on now. All right. So
Exactly.
we're going to get to Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling because we got so much to talk about. We're
I know.
20 minutes into the show and we haven't even bounced up against the door yet. But, obviously, the Wonder Years, ABC network show, primetime. We'll talk about the number of years because I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was a good run. 7, I think, maybe 8.
Yeah, 7.
In the Smithsonian, as we speak, arts and entertainment part of the Smithsonian, that kind of put young Jason Hervey on the map, brother. How old were you when that came down? And tell me about the audition, because that has to be when you're a kid and you're at this point grown up in the business. You started when you were 4, so whatever. But even then, this has got to feel like, whoa.
Yeah, good question. So when I first got, when you go on your first and second audition, they don't just hand you the script, or at least they didn't for me. They hand you 3 or 4 pages, and that's what's called your sides. So they, give you your sides, and, you're expected to either be off book, which means memorizing them, or be pretty familiar with the material. I try to be, off book when I can, which meant memorizing this 3 or 4 pages. And they didn't tell me anything about it. They didn't say that, things that probably would have that could have shaped my performance, right? They didn't tell me that it was a period piece, right? That this was, in the 60s. They didn't, tell me that there was the biggest one, that there was going to be a narrator that was, this young Fred Savage in an adult looking back at his youth, at his wonder years. And honestly, I went in there and there's, 50 people, cattle call, kind of thing. And I go to the audition, and, at that time you have to remember, my routine was I would go to school. If I wasn't working, my mother would pick me up after school. She would have a change of clothes in the car for me. If I'm lucky and if she remembered, maybe a little snack, a little juice box, an apple, whatever. And I'm changing in the car. I'm, changing in the car, getting into my audition clothes. And my mom would take me, from Santa Monica, to the Valley, to Hollywood, to wherever the audition was. And sometimes I'd have 3 and 4 auditions in one day. Some of them could be just for a little, regional commercial for a car dealership. One could be a national, commercial. One could be a small part, in a movie. One could be for, a guest star in a show. They were all, ranging in, all shapes and sizes and scales. And, my father, may you rest in peace. He always told me, he's like, Jason, and my mother too, but like, if you don't get the job, it's not because you're not a good person. It's not because, there's anything wrong with you. They wanted somebody taller and you're shorter. They wanted somebody shorter, you're taller. They wanted somebody, skinnier or fatter, whatever it might, be. It's not personal. You're fitting this role that usually starts with, what the writer has in their mind when they're shaping and creating, this character. So I had to have a pretty thick skin, early on. I would have to go into that audition, give it everything that I could, and then literally as I'm leaving the building, forget about it. Because, if you became emotionally attached to something and start thinking about, in what ways could this potentially change my life? Financially, celebrity, and most of all, you're a kid, so you're not really thinking of those things. You're thinking about, can I get home in time before the street lamps go on, and I could play some, football in the street with my buddies, or ride my skateboard or my bike, but you're around the business, and you pick things up, so you're kind of like a kid in your age and in your stature, but in some ways you're a little bit more business minded, because you have to sit in a certain place, you have to be told don't laugh, stand still, do this, do that, and you're expected on the set and in your auditions to behave as an adult even though you're a kid.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of a cool thing. All right, let's talk about one of our favorite sponsors here on 83weeks.com. We're talking about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action, with over 10 million members and billions with a B dollars awarded in winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick either more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The app is simple, man. Create a lineup. All you have to do is pick more or less on a few players for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while you're digging sports, man. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite basketball players with players from baseball, hockey, esports, and so much more. Prize Picks offers Venmo. They make it easy on you, bro. Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account all during sports season. The second half of the basketball season is here, and the race of the playoffs is heating up. It is one of my favorite times of year, and it's really heating up over at Prize Picks. Don't miss your chance. Cash in on the league's best fight for playoff positioning. Like, for example, do you think LeBron James will go for more than 24 points this week? Giannis for more than 35? Cook up your hot takes with your friends, win some real money, have some fun this basketball season, and run your game on Prize Picks. This is really simple, man. Download the app today. Do it now. It makes it so much easier. And use the code 83weeks to get 50. Yeah, I said $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Want to hear me say that once again? It's simple to understand. I don't want to make it more confusing than it needs to be. It's real simple. Download the app today. Like right now, when you're done listening to this read, you're going to get $50 credit to your account instantly after you make your first $5 lineup. It's that simple. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Yeah, man. So I literally, my mom, sweet as can be. How'd you think you did? Did you do good? And I would say, Mom, I'll be honest with you. I thought I blew it. I really thought I blew it. So then about 2 weeks goes by, and she's like, hey, remember that audition that you thought you blew for this secret untitled ABC project? And I was like, yeah. She goes, well, I want to see you again. And I thought, well, okay. So, this time there was the sides that I did the first time, and now they gave me another 3 or 4 pages to memorize. So
how long did it take you to memorize?
Oh, honestly, less than 20 minutes. Yeah, for 4 pages of dialogue. Because I was just Eric, it's a muscle, you know what I mean? And it's just something that if
I've
you're
never
in
had
that
one,
mode,
I couldn't tell you.
But no, when you're in that mode, I know it sounds, neat, but when you're in that mode and just doing it, it's muscle memory, So I memorized it. And by the way, memorizing it is one thing, okay?
Right.
Committing it to memory, but then incorporating the emotion and your performance. And, you have to hold for a certain beat because, you remembered it in one way in your head, but now you're interacting with somebody other than yourself, doing it in the mirror. There's another person, and it can affect your timing, as well. So believe me, there's a lot of other things happening at the same time that you're memorizing, your dialogue. So
You know
I
what?
went in.
I'm going to camp out on that point that you just made, because this is a wrestling show, and whenever I can, I like to tie the things we're talking about that
Yeah.
don't seem like they have anything to do with wrestling, but actually do a lot. What you were talking about just there, the difference between memorizing your script and being able to interpret that script in a real environment, whether that's film or in front of a live audience, because now you're reacting to something other than the memory, the pace that you have it memorized.
The pace, that's
So
right.
if you have this thing memorized,
Yes.
and you're memorizing it at a certain pace as you're playing
Yes.
both sides of the script in your mind,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And now that's in your head, and now your director cue, and all of
Yes.
a sudden you're gone. You're like a
Yep.
horse coming out of the gate. You're like Secretariat, and you're coming with your strong, with your copy, your narrative,
Yeah.
dialogue. Unfortunately, there's another person on the end of that's trying to do the same thing. And when they don't really sync up, you get really bad acting in 90% of the wrestling promos that you see backstage. That's what you get.
You're so right. And by the way, let me add to that, okay? You're not working with another actor. You're working with the casting director,
Right.
okay? And that casting director, you're like, yeah, I'm the most important person to me, but not to them. I'm just another person coming in there. And believe me, they're thinking about their lunch. They're thinking about the return phone calls. They're thinking if they remember to, feed their kid or their dog, whatever. Like, so they're kind of phoning it in, and they're just giving you this monosyllabic, just dead, no emotion, looking at the pages because they're not off book. So it's like a sponge, right? They're just like taking everything from me. But, they say, acting is reacting, right? And it's a lot of times in those moments, of almost saying nothing, where you have these great facial reactions, things like that. But when you're reading with someone and they're just doing this, they're giving you nothing. And, you have to, be able to work through that, and to not have it affect my performance because they're sucking my energy down. Does that make sense?
Taking it back to wrestling, do you agree with what I see when you see most wrestling promos, is that they both pieces of the puzzle maybe have everything memorized, but it doesn't feel real because they're not reacting to each other. They're just
Right.
taking turns talking.
Yes.
That's the best way to say
Eh,
it. They're taking turns talking.
Yeah, taking turns talking. Yeah, no, and it's like you guys are supposed to be talking like to each other, and we're supposed to feel like we care, and there's this, connection, right? So, not, I mean, I can't help but, bounce around, but that's why, Eric, when we did reaction, and it wasn't a page of things that they needed to hit within their promo. It was off the cuff, and we would inspire that reality to unfold within the narrative that we've created. And I think that's why people reacted to it, because it was real, but within, like I said, our narrative. So I think there's a direct correlation between wrestling and this audition process, or even just this performance process. There's two people doing a dance, and you have to connect, in that dance for it to be soulful and real and meaningful.
So let's get back to Wonder Years. Now you got a callback.
I got a call back. So I'm thinking, maybe I did something, correct. So I go through that process, still just the casting directors. Another 2 weeks goes by, I get a third call back. Now I'm kind of starting to want it, even though I don't really know what it is yet or the significance of it. The only thing that I really had heard was that the creators of the Wonder Years were the same creators of the TV show Growing Pains. And I was a big fan of that show. I was great friends with Kirk Cameron. So I knew that it would be, smart, and because Growing Pains was at ABC and these were the creators of Growing Pains and this is their next show, I knew that the network would probably, get behind this.
How old were you then? How old are you right now?
15, 15 and a half.
So at 15 years old, you could sense the vibe and the significance of the package, as they say in Hollywood, that came along with the idea.
Yes. Yeah. And now I'm starting to want it, even though I was told you got to forget about it the second you walk out of that building, now I want it. And those casting rooms were going from 50 people to 20 people to 8 people to 3 people. Okay. So now everyone's kind of sizing each other up, etc. I go on my, on my third audition, and that night, instead of waiting for a couple of weeks, that night I remember my mom, coming in and saying to me, the studio and the casting director reached out. Congratulations, you're going to network, which means you don't have it yet, but it's down to like you and, like one other person. Okay. And it's going to be at Capital Cities, which is, at that time, it was the ABC World Headquarters in Century
So let
City.
me interrupt you, Jay, and I apologize. We'll go right
Sure.
back to World Headquarters. But did you know who the other person was or people were who were up for it?
I guess, I was trying to like remember, who could it be? Who could it be? I narrowed it down to, to one guy. I don't remember his name, but, I remembered his face. And we looked very different, So I could see that we both kind of got over with our performance, and now it's going to be a look thing, because you got to remember, none of these people are family. They have to cast the family, so there has to be like, now it's like mix and match. Okay,
Right.
we got this sister with this brother, possibly with this father, but we really love this mother.
It's kind of like Ancestry.com for Hollywood.
Yes, bingo, exactly. It's just like that, okay? But except with this one, you can pick your family. With the other one, you're stuck with them. So, so we get to, and before you go to network, by the way, and this is very smart. Now, the business person in me goes, yes, of course, that's logical, okay? When you go to network, okay, they negotiate a 7-year deal up front. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Because they're not going to have you get the part and then you've got them somewhat over a barrel in terms of a negotiation. You know what I'm saying?
That's smart.
And they're not going to go, well, geez, if the pilot does well, let's let them renegotiate. Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's like, putting the belt on somebody and only doing a one event contract with them. And then you put the strap on them. Oh, now let's do your deal. Well, you just made me the champion. Better get out your checkbook.
I don't think I've done that, but it's been close a couple times. You get a little too excited. Oh, really? Don't worry about it. Attorneys will get that paperwork done. Let's just get to work.
Oh my gosh. So the only problem, by the way, at least I get how it protects the network, okay? But now you see what you're gonna make, in success if this thing goes for 7 years. So, now you want it, okay? Now, like, you want it because you could see that it could be, or would be, life changing.
Wow.
And then and then for the other person who didn't get it, remember, they had a contract, that was, conditioned.
Oh, Jay, that's freaking painful, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're going through weeks and months of, oh my gosh, my life might change.
Yes.
To shit. I came that close.
That's right. Exactly. And then you could take that contract and rip it up because it means nothing.
Yeah, because there is no number 2. There's only number 1.
That's right. So
Wow.
I remember. Yeah. So so they, my mother and my uncle, negotiate the deal. Everyone is happy, and they do it like real quick. They're like, the audition's in 2 days. You have to negotiate the 7-year deal. Like, let's go. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure Uncle Howie has seen those 7-year deals before and knew what he could and couldn't do. So that was probably pretty seamless process, at least for the first one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because in Success, in around year 4, we did all renegotiate our contracts.
Right.
But you had to band together to do that.
Did you guys go on strike?
No, but I think there might have been 1 or 2 days somebody had the flu. So anyway,
it's like, people don't realize it's not totally obvious, because the real parallels between Hollywood and the way you grew up and the way you're talking about business and the wrestling business are not that much different. I think, to be honest with you, everybody says, guys will say, dirt sheet writers, it's everybody in that business is, they're never going to tell you the truth. They're going to lie. They're going to manipulate you. They're going to do, people in the wrestling industry, executives, even at the highest levels, are like the worst people in the world. They're evil.
Wow.
Fuckers don't even know evil till they spent 20 minutes working in Hollywood. Exactly. Evil, when I say evil, I'm talking about absolutely ruthless business people.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been turning aggressive negotiations in all of the dances and the all the accoutrements of doing a deal. They make you feel so good, but when it comes down to negotiating, it's a meat grinder. And if people think the wrestling business can be manipulative,
yeah, without a question. And I've been through a few of those. But so now the deal's done. You realize how life-changing this is going to be. Okay. If you get it. And I go into capital cities, and it's this, 2-story lobby, and everything is black leather and granite, and, covering every inch of the wall, is, who's the boss, and Different Strokes and Growing Pains, like all these like mega hit shows. And you're like, wow, maybe my poster, if I get this and this show could last, maybe it'll be on, in these hollowed halls, one day. And they take me upstairs, and I go upstairs, and there's like 5 chairs sitting right in front of the room that we're going to go in. And that is the very first time that I meet Fred Savage. And that is the very first time that I met Dan Loria, who would go on to play my father. And I remember it was me in the middle, Fred was to my left, Dan was to my right, and we were all just like kind of sitting there. And Dan goes, "Hey, how you kids doing? Are you guys all right?" And like, "Yes, sir. I'm, Dan, Fred. We all shake hands." And he looks at us, because remember, Dan was a real actor from the theater, in in New York, right? And unless you've done the theater, you're not a real actor, according to Dan. And I love Dan. I would say this right to him. So he says to me and to Fred, he goes, "Any of you kids do theater? Do you do theater? Have you ever done a play?" And Fred and I were like, "No, no, I haven't done a play." He's like, you're not real actors then. You're not real actors." And I was like, well, I've been doing this for, quite a while. He's like, yeah, that's just experience. He's like, that's not what I'm talking about. And he goes, if you get this show, if we all get this show, and he made it sound so terrible, Eric. He goes, we're all going to be turned into TV stars. We're all just going to be TV stars. And
What
I
an
was like,
attitude. Why did he go to the audition then?
right? And I was like, well, that doesn't sound so terrible.
In the meantime, you're standing there looking at a lottery ticket that's got
Exactly.
a timestamp on it. And if you can last long enough to match the timestamp, your
Yes.
life is over with in a lot of good ways.
Exactly. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound too terrible. And, then they come out and they're like, okay, come in. And that was the very first time that I did a scene now, not with the casting director, but with Fred and with, the gentleman who played my father.
And who just told you that you're not a real actor?
That guy did. And last thing I'll say is the setting of it, Eric. The setting of it is meant to intimidate you. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's this big room that they have actually a stage on. Okay. It's not a massive stage, but it's a big enough stage. And there's bright lights on the stage. And when I tell you, you cannot see into the audience, I don't know if there was 100 people there. I don't know if there was 5 people there. And because they've been hearing the same dialogue all day, they don't give you any energy. They're not laughing, where you're delivering lines that are written, as comedic lines. And they're just like sitting there. And then they say, okay, thank you. Thank you. They'll validate your parking up front. And that's it, And then that night, got a call saying, I got the part. So. Crazy process.
And thanks for sharing that, because you're kind of you're sharing a part of the process that we on the outside who have never really worked in Hollywood, I spent a minute, on the business side working in Hollywood, but not as a performer, not as an actor.
Right.
Have some better sex with Blue Chew, why don't you? Blue Chew's the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. And starting now, Blue Chew's offering a combo so strong it'll knock your socks off and your neighbor's socks off. In fact, you're going to have to move towns with the amount of noise you'll be making. Blue Chew Max has arrived, and it combines the active ingredients of Viagra and Cialis into one chewable. This new combo acts fast and lasts. Guys, be ready when she needs it and get your first month of Blue Chew free. You see, great sex is just a few clicks away. So sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part is it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use our promo code 83 weeks. Just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code 83 weeks. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast.
That's a whole different world that you just exposed. But, we don't think about, you see somebody who's a child actor who goes on to become successful on your case, network series, Smithsonian Institute, Fine Arts, a lot of accolades going on there, right? But we don't think about the process of what it takes to get there. Similar to professional wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
You could look at somebody like a Roman Reigns right now, or a Cody Rhodes right now, or an MJF right now, and you could go, wow, they're in that spot. Oh, that's the coolest thing ever. Oh, they're so lucky. No.
They worked
You had half a clue of what it took for them to get there and what they had to sacrifice along the way. And just the emotional, like getting your ass kicked every week.
Yeah.
You said, I got a thick skin. It comes with a cost, by the way, especially when you're a young kid and your brain's still forming, your personality's forming, and your subconscious is developing, and you're being put in these situations where you're being judged, even if it is, as you said earlier, because you're a little too tall, a little too short, a little too chubby, a little too skinny. That's all subjective shit that shouldn't be taken personally, but you can't help it as a human being.
Of course.
When they go, you get to stay, you muckerfuthers get to go home.
Yes, exactly.
They don't say it that way, but that's how it feels, and you got to go through that as a kid. So that's an interesting aspect of the journey.
Well, and Eric, what's interesting, and this is why I love the business, the wrestling business, and I have so much respect for the performers, because for the athletes, what they go through, and I would say, in some aspects, in a lot of aspects, it's a lot harder than an actor, or an actress, in a movie, because wrestlers, when the art form is done perfectly, and Hulk, my long relationship with him because of you, he taught me, as well as you taught me, a ton, about the business. And Hulk would always tell me, he's like, you got to listen to the building. He's like, the building will tell you, what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and you have to be able to, adapt and improvise, to that. And without cutting a promo, okay, and the baby face and the heel, and we know who everybody is going into that match. When wrestlers can tell that story with no promo, in just the physical, in the physical attributes and their moves and what they do, it's beautiful and it's amazing for them to tell a story with no words. That's a physical story, and you're going to know who your bad guy is, you're going to know who your good guy is, and it's going to tell you this. And it's the psychology of the story, but there's a lot of similarities between acting and wrestling.
I've used the analogy before, where, and not even really an analogy, but it's just an example of how, in a Broadway play, because it's live, just like wrestling normally is, it's live, there's a crowd there, and you're on a stage instead of a ring,
right?
And you've got cast members instead of opponents, and you've got the written word, which is your dialogue, which is a big part of your tools.
Yeah.
In wrestling, you have a stage, it's called a ring. You have your co-stars, which are your opponents.
Yeah.
Right. And the big difference is your narrative is physical. You don't have dialogue. You'll have some, but the most significant part of a wrestler's dialogue isn't the spoken word. It's what happens, as you just pointed out, inside of the ring, and the ability to not only tell that story inside of that ring, but reinforce the character at the same time.
Yeah.
That is an art form. I agree with you 100%. It's professional wrestling done well, because we all see a lot of professional wrestling not done so well. But when it's done well, as you preface this by or with, it is really a beautiful thing. And it's really fascinating. If you get past your own biases, if you're kind of like, I don't really know why this wrestling thing works. There's a lot of reasons why that wrestling thing works, and why it's still dominating the world of entertainment today, much to the chagrin of all those people that went, gee, it's wrestling. I don't know if that stuff really works. I get a kick
bigger than ever.
Hey, listen, we're going to move this along a little bit. I think we're going to end up doing another show, because there's a lot of other ground I want to cover. So I'm going to take the liberty here to fast forward us through the time tunnel that is Jason Hervey's life, and how it collided with one of Eric Bischoff's. But let's fast forward through a lot of that stuff. But real quick, 30 seconds or less, elevator pitch, 2-story building. You're walking into the elevator. Tell me your first memory of being exposed to professional wrestling.
Saturday morning with my father and my brother. Georgia Championship Wrestling was on local channel 5. I think it was like a KCAL affiliate. And it was the Four Horsemen. It was Tony Schiavone. It was Ric Flair. It was Hands of Stone, Jimmy Garvin. It was Barry Windham. It was Yeah, that's my earliest memories of it. It was the thing that brought us together. And when I say us, meaning my father and my brother and myself and my dad, who grew up in the Bronx, New York. He would go and sneak in to Madison Square Garden, and he would watch, professional wrestling. And that was something that he passed along to my brother and I, and it's how we spent some
So he
time
was
together.
he probably bought tickets to Vince McMahon Senior's WWF in Madison
Yeah.
Square Garden. That's
Well,
so,
notice I said he snuck into the garden.
yeah,
I
there you go.
didn't-
There you go. There you go. And then later in life, you somehow got you were in a four-way stop with Terry Funk, and you guys ended up hanging out. What's that about?
So I love your style of questions now. I did this was before the Wonder Years. I did a series on ABC, did 13 episodes. It was called Wild Side. The actress, very lovely lady Meg Ryan, played my mother, and Terry Funk was one of the stars, and I played this town kid named Zeke. Yeah, we did 13 episodes. We went up against the Cosby Show, so we did not do more than 13 episodes. We got canceled because everybody was watching the
The
Cosby
Cosby
Show.
Show.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm telling you, when I did, it took us about 8 or 9 months to do these 13 1-hour episodes. It was a Western. And I'm telling you, I was probably the biggest thorn in the side to Terry Funk, because at that time, remember, I'm a fan. I watch it on Saturday mornings.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. How did they cast a Jewish kid from West LA in a cowboy movie in a Western? What?
Hey, just put a hat on me and some boots, and put a little
Did you make all the rest of the actors look taller? Was that it?
put a little schmutz on my face, and it looks like I was hanging out at the corral. I don't know.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
So yeah, man, I'm telling you, between every take, I would go up to Terry Funk, who was just, he didn't have, the gift that I had of memorizing, 5 and 6 pages of dialogue in 20 minutes. He's sitting there between each take, like trying to memorize. He probably didn't want to be bothered. And I'm like, did you ever wrestle the Junkyard Dog? Did you
Say,
ever
how long
wrestle?
did it take him to want to adopt you?
Well, yeah, I was just asking him so many questions. Did you ever wrestle Tito Santana? Well, what about Hulk Hogan? How about Andre the Giant? It was, I just must have been such a pain in the side, but he couldn't have been any nicer. And then when we wrapped the show, he actually he flew me out to the Double Cross Ranch in Amarillo, Texas, and I spent about a week there, and just had a ball. And he was showing me old wrestling tapes and all kinds of stuff. We really had a nice time. It was fun.
Hey, so what I'm gonna do, because I've just got to take a leak. There's no other way around this. I can't.
Do you want
We're
me to take
live right now, and I'm
questions?
not gonna try to make some stuff up just to make
Do
it
you, do
sound
you want
good.
do you want
So
me to take questions while you go through the wrestling?
here's what I propose.
Okay, go.
I want to hit Efren's comment because he is one of the best people I know, and
Okay.
I'm very grateful to him. There we go, right here, Efren. He loves you, Jay, and he's thanking you for being a part of the game event at Top Guy Weekend. He was our game show host with the most, and I'm telling you, Jason,
Oh, he was great. He was great.
he's beyond great. He's not only one of the nicest people in the world, he's so talented, and I'm telling you, this guy is a game show waiting to happen in today's market. I'm going to take a leak. Super Dave, could you give Jason some questions from the crowd while I'm taking care of business, so to speak?
100%.
Go do your thing.
All right, I'll be back in just a minute.
All right,
Get some water,
I'll try not to wreck your show. I'm sorry.
Hold down the fort.
I'll hold down the fort. All right, let's go.
Okay, here you go, Jason. From
What do we
Coach
got?
Rosie. What are your cardinal rules when negotiating a deal?
Ooh, okay. So I got to put over Eric here for a second. Eric told me long ago that when used correctly, the word no, if you really, really mean it, the word no is the most powerful word in the English language. And you have to know what you are willing, you have to be willing to walk away. Okay, so that's one of my cardinal rules. You have to have the ability I like to say sometimes the best deals I've done are the ones that I didn't do. Okay. Because it just, for a variety of reasons, whatever. You have to know when to walk away. You have to know, and you have to do that in advance. And whether that's a dollar amount, whether that's a time commitment, whether it's something, creative that you feel passionately about, you in advance of that negotiation, you have to have the ability and to know when to say no and what your walkaway point is, and you have to mean it. And when you're dealing with someone on the other side of the table, if they know that you really mean that, okay, and they don't think that they can kind of work you and get you and have you compromise, okay, even though the art of a good negotiation is compromising, because I was also taught that sometimes if the knife is too sharp, it won't cut, meaning that you should feel a little bit of pain on your side and they should feel a little bit of pain on their side. That really is the mark of a good deal, to be honest with you. You're not going to get everything you want, and by the way, if you did get absolutely everything that you want, that person on the other side at some point or another is probably going to resent you, and your working relationship is going to collapse because you got over on them and you got everything that you wanted, and they're going to remember that. So any good negotiation, you got to give something up, and then the other side has to give something up in order for both sides to feel good. But know what that is before going into it, so you can say no and mean it and walk away if you have to.
I wish we could have figured that out long before we did. There's something to be said for learning shit the hard way. But
well,
I could have had 2 Harvard educations by now.
Well, as they say, it's an applied science, not an exact one.
There you go. There you go. All right, where did we leave off? We left off with Terry Funk and him wanting to adopt you because knowing any professional wrestler who was in the position that Terry Funk was in at the time, and seeing some kid that could come in and look at a script, eat a candy bar, and then memorize it, you'd want to get as close to that kid as you possibly could. Hoping just, from a wrestler's perspective, you just won't get the rub.
That's right.
Come here, kid.
Right.
Come here, kid. Let me rub your head and see if it works. All right. So further, as I, hit to warp speed and zoom through the time tunnel that is Jason Hervey's life.
Yes.
You and I formed BHE. We'll talk about it in depth in another time. We probably covered some of this already. We formed BHE sometime, I don't know what it was, 2002, 3, whatever, 4, I can't remember. Somewhere in that early time. You're living, Bischoff, there it is. There it is.
There
that
it is.
Beautiful look.
I remember that.
Big, beautiful look.
Yeah.
And look at us. I still had black in my beard back then. Those are the good old days. Women would still look at me when I'd walk into a room. Now it's just like, oh, make room for the old guy. You don't want him to fall down and break his hip. But we fast forward, we get to BHE. Now I'm going to tag back into your mom again, because this is why I developed such a lovely relationship with her. Money's no problem for me at this point, neither for you. You're transitioning from Huntsville, Alabama, a pretty interesting story and scenario
Birmingham.
there. You haven't even made it back to all your stuff's still in Alabama. You and I eat some oysters, shoot some tequila, and decide we're going to launch a production company in Seattle at WrestleMania.
That's right.
And we get to work right away. I didn't even have an apartment at that time. I was staying at the Radisson Huntley Hotel down in Santa Monica. Oh my God, did we have stories to talk about?
Do we ever?
That was fun. Living at the Radisson Huntley, which was like one of the coolest bars in Santa Monica.
Going to Michael's. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Michael's.
Oh yeah, that was no fun at all. But we do all this, and we're hustling, but we have to borrow your mom's car because your stuff is still in Huntsville. My stuff is in Scottsdale. And we just said, no, let's get to work now. I didn't buy a car. I stayed at a hotel. We borrow your mom's car, and we're zooming all over, pitching throughout Hollywood. We open our first office in your mom's apartment building that she owned. Somebody moved out, and she let us.
Eric, my grandmother passed away. That's why
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say that.
That's okay.
In case it came off cold. I don't know how I come off sometimes. Sometimes I know exactly. Sometimes I know
waiting for
exactly
her to
how I'm
die.
coming off, and other times I think I'm coming off kind of nice, but it's actually a little rougher on the edges. So,
Well, we weren't rooting for her to die. She just did.
no, I know, but sometimes you never know how people feel about certain things. It could be a soft spot still
That's
to
true.
this day.
No, that's true. That is true.
Anyway, okay, let's talk about Hulk Hogan Championship Wrestling because we're 1 hour into the show. We haven't even touched it yet.
Okay.
So, with Bischoff Hervey Entertainment, a lot of success right off the bat. A lot of that owed to the quality of relationships that you were able to come to the table with, your understanding of business, and also your skill and your experience, more than skill actually, of being an actor producer, because that's really valuable in a lot of different ways, more so than even being a good producer or a good actor. If you're a good producer actor, wow, you've got advantages, just much like probably writer director, same.
Yes,
because you got your hands on it.
Yeah.
We end up going through, we sell a bunch of shows. We develop a great relationship. All this is happening over the course of 5 or 6 years. We're selling a lot of shows, developing relationships with networks. One of whom was one of the coolest people that I've ever gotten an opportunity to do business with, that I met through you. That would be Melanie Moreau.
Melanie Moreau. That's right. That's right.
Let's touch on Melanie briefly. Melanie and Rose, she's such a cool chick. Actually, she came out here with her 2 daughters to visit Laura and I in Wyoming. They stayed at the house like for 5 days.
Yeah. In the bunkhouse, right?
No, they stayed in the main house. They were the only ones here. So they stayed out. So we developed a good relationship. But I met her through you. What's your first contact with Melanie at CMT?
So, and again, Eric, to your point, it's all a relationship based business. And, at the time, we're growing BHE. We're selling shows. We come out of the gate, with Scott Baio, and I want to be a Hilton, and some other projects, but we didn't quite have the infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, we didn't have the lights, the cameras, all the.
Oh no, he'll be back. Super Dave, are you with me?
I am with you, and yes, he will be back. But while we wait, let's take some questions
from our fans.
There he is. He's already back.
Eric.
Oh, he's already back. Okay.
Are you there?
We're here. We got you, brother.
I can't hear you.
I'm here. You can't hear me? It's got to be on your end.
So weird. Hold on.
Yeah, I bet you his earbuds died.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah, your earbuds were crapping out on you.
Yeah. So we were having to partner with other companies, if you remember that point in time. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the lights, the gear, the editing, the infrastructure that goes into after you sell the show, then you got to make the show. Okay. And we were partnering, with a couple different companies, and we knew that if we really had to grow, and we really wanted to grow and control more of the process, we were going to have to take that step. But you can't take that step unless you have the business.
It's the chicken and the egg.
There you go. That's right. So met Melanie Moreau because we had done, a fantastic job, you and I, on the Scott Baio's 45 and pregnant, Scott Baio's 46 and or Scott Baio's 45 and single, Scott Baio's 46 and pregnant. We got a phone call from Melanie Moreau at CMT. And I think, we had taken a couple general meetings with her. If you remember, Eric, we had a power boat racing show.
Yeah.
Okay. So
that Geico was going to sponsor.
That's right. That never happened.
Remember that crazy bastard that was like the broker between us and a decision maker at Geico?
Yes.
He had us running in circles for 6 freaking months.
Oh yeah, it was terrible, but yeah, it was called H2 Overdrive.
Yeah.
And so Melanie had tried to work with us on a couple different projects. For whatever reason, they didn't happen. But then we really hit gold with a second season order with the Baio franchise, and that was on VH1. Well, CMT is a kissing cousin to VH1 because it's all under Viacom. So we get a phone call from Melanie, and she says, "Hey, look, we just had a meeting with Billy Ray Cyrus and Miley Cyrus, and they very much want to do a reality show. Now, I spoke to Brian Graydon, who was in the meeting, who at the time, the way that Viacom was structured, they had like group presidents, okay? And, Kevin Kay had a cluster of networks he was president of, Brian Graydon had a cluster of networks he was president of, and so on and so forth. And the only note that I said, oh, that's terrific. She goes, well, I need a production company. And she's like, can you guys do it? Well, of course we can do it. Sure we can. And I said, well, what do you want the show to be? And this is just how funny how Hollywood works, because sometimes you have to work so hard to flesh out an entire idea. And here was the pitch. She goes, Brian will greenlight a series if you could just do with Billy Ray for CMT what you did with Bayo for VH1. Like, that was it. Like, that's the show. And it's like, wait, what? And she goes, if you guys can do it, I'll give it to you. And at that time, Eric, you and I had to, make a real serious business decision if this was the direction we wanted to go in. And you and I both, probably over 1, 2, 10, 100, Coors Lights, were like, it's either now, or never. And, we made that decision, and, and it worked. And, from the Billy Ray Cyrus show, came the Ted Nugent show, came the PBR Posse show, came several things. And of course, Hulk Hogan's Celebrity
So tell me
Championship
specifically
Wrestling.
what you remember, because I remember a couple of the early, just you and I going, okay, they're interested in doing something in wrestling. I think that was like the lead in, but it's, they want to do a competition elimination format. And I'll just give you what I remember, and you tell me if I'm close.
Yep, go.
You must have got the tip from Melanie what they were looking for through either our agent or your relationship, one way or the other.
Yeah.
But it was big in general, wrestling. Wow. Dancing with the Stars was real big back then. So it was like, can we get our version of Dancing with the Stars? I think that was the take, right? Can we do that?
Something along those lines, yeah.
And I wanted to do real people. I didn't want to do celebrities. I remember you and I were at Harold's Bar in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
We're talking about this at the main bar.
Yeah.
And we both wanted to do the show. I felt fairly strongly about real people. You felt even more strongly about doing what the network wanted to do, which was celebrities. So you and the network won.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it was, and because I think if I recall, I remember, being at Harold's, and like Celebrity, right, was so popular. Every network was trying to have their signature show,
right,
that, and Celebrity was happening, and the Surreal Life was popular, but they didn't want to do like a house-based celebrity show, and they did. They were like, kind of like, what's these are their words, not mine. What's the redneck version, of a Dancing with the Stars?
That's exactly it. And for people,
Yeah.
I know you have to always say a disclaimer, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to offend anybody,
Right.
unless you're me, and then you really don't care. But you just got to be honest about stuff. But that's how they would characterize their own programming.
That's right.
The redneck version of. So
That's right.
if there's, a real highbrow, competition elimination show that was like killing it on the network level,
Right.
they want the redneck version of that.
That's right. That's right.
So
listen, if you enjoy this show, I know that you love nostalgia. And when I think about nostalgia for my life, yes, I think about wrestling. I think about Saturday morning cartoons, and I think about a big bowl of cereal. Well, there's now a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like your childhood favorites, but without all the sugar. When we get older, we realize what we really need in the morning is protein. Well, every serving of Magic Spoon cereal has 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating. The most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, but there's so many more. And now Magic Spoon's brand new treats are crispy, they're crunchy, they're airy, and it's an easy way to get 12 grams of protein, but on the go. And for the first time ever, now Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores and in delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. My personal favorite is double chocolate. What are you waiting for? Go get $5 off your next order right now at magicspoon.com/83weeks, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/83weeks. 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 You'll get $5 off. Magic Spoon.
Yeah, and Eric, what was that? Because I remember when we were talking about, do we use celebrities? Do we not use celebrities? Even though that's what the network wanted, and you and I were never shy about trying sometimes to either talk in or talk out of a network's position and advocate for what we believe creatively.
Right.
But of course, at the end of the day, we're gonna go where the business is. But what was that show that the WWE did a zillion years ago, where they were taking real people, turning them into wrestlers? Al Snow was on. What was that show called?
Oh, Super Dave. What was that?
Tough Enough. Thank you.
Look, he not only knows, he's got the graphic at his freaking fingertips. How does that happen? What kind of a clairvoyant Mexican are you?
He's Super Dave. That's why he's Super Dave.
Now you guys know why I call him Super Dave. I'm
That's right.
stumbling around for words and a name and a title, and I stutter it out like I half-ass think I know I'm right, and there it is in the graphic.
That's right. And that was the point, was that if we just did, the civilians, it was going to be, CMT's version of Tough Enough. And they wanted, Eric, remember this note? We want to do something loud and buzzworthy that comes with its own built-in audience. Sound familiar? Right?
Real quick. Both Jason and I were represented by one of the coolest agents that either one of us has ever worked with. His name is Hans Schiff.
Yeah.
I think he's retired now, but and he's retired because he was good at his job.
That's right.
And he's super cool guy, very young, as agents go. At that time, we're all 20 years older now, so things are different. But cool guy. Where was I going with Hans? What was the point you just brought up?
We were talking about buzzworthy.
Buzzworthy. So when you have an agent, if you're a production company like we were, or recognized as producers, and you were represented by an agent, then they would send you, these emails throughout the week of what the latest updates are from
the network needs
their interface with different network executives and various pitches that they were in throughout the week. So it's really, really good intel if you could sift through the gaga of it all.
Yes.
And the gaga is the opening line that was at the head of every one of these emails, so general. Everything had to be buzzworthy, water cooler potential.
That's right.
All these really, beautifully sounding, phrases that sound like, well, hell, that's not hard. It's something that's going to get 18 million people dropping what the fuck they're doing so they can watch what we think is a good idea.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They would tell you everything that they wanted it to be, but with the exception of what it is.
Yeah, because they don't know what it is.
Until it walks in their office.
That's how that town works. Nobody knows. Nobody has a freaking clue. They're walking around with their eyes closed in a dark room, bumping into shit, hoping that they're going to bump into something that actually feels good.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Exactly.
And your job as a supplier or an independent producer, whatever you really want to call yourself, to get yourself through the night, make yourself feel better about life in general, whatever you think your job is, what your job really is just to drag shit in and see if you can find something that they think is exciting.
And by the way, and hiding the fact that nobody knows just a little bit better than the next guy to keep your job.
Yeah.
Because they'll never tell you, we got no clue. What are you talking about?
It's a fascinating business, and it's fun to make fun of because the process is so subjective.
It's crazy.
And so non-analytical.
No.
And not even analytical. There's just no rhyme, no reason to some of it.
Yeah.
It's so subjective. Anyway, so we get we get the word that we need a redneck survivor or something.
Dancing with the Stars.
Dancing with the Stars. So we, much to our internal discussions and debate, we know what we got to do. We do Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling.
That's right.
Did Viacom say we want Hulk, or did we pitch Hulk?
No, I think we came out and we
we dangled it.
Yeah, we put the cherry on top of the format of the Sunday. And
yeah, so like, we put him in the pitch. Let's be real. So we put him in the pitch, plastered him all over the deck, knowing we didn't really have him, but he might be interested, and we used that to sell.
That's exactly right. And
welcome to Hollywood, kid. Welcome to Hollywood.
That's right. That's right. Yep. And we actually had a small bidding war, and that means when one network and another network wanted at the same time, and we were able to get a couple of other extra things in our deal that we normally wouldn't have. But we had a great executive in Melanie who was fighting for us.
She was awesome. And even on location, she showed up. I mean, she wasn't just a typical network executive that would show up on their cell phone and they're there. Hey, everybody, I'm here. Everybody notice I'm here. I'm actually showing up on the set because, I'm here to make that impression. So you all acknowledge it when I leave and say hi, do a couple handshakes and out the door. She stayed on set, and it was a grueling set. It was grueling. All right, we're going to speed this along a little bit. We're going to be here until tomorrow morning. So we get the show. Melanie goes swings the bat. We get Hulk Hogan. I remember that process. It was fun.
Doing the Lord's work.
Oh my God. But I had I had my work cut out for me with Hulk. Anybody that's ever did business with him knows that. And that was just the easy part with him at that time because of what he was going through in his physical state. So it was just all train wreck. But you had your own train wreck. You had, when I say train wreck, it was a labor of love. Don't get me wrong, but it was tough. But you had your own labor of love and train wreck because you're now dealing with celebrities, many of whom you grew up with, started with.
And hold on. And taking a half a step back, okay? It's one thing. It's one thing to sell the show, okay? It's another thing to cast the show. Okay, because in a deck, we could get this one and that one, and I think this one will do it.
Like we did with Hulk, same thing.
That's right. So now we have to hire a casting director that we would work with. I'm sitting there going through my Rolodex of who can we call, blah blah blah, and at that time, kind of top of the list for everybody was Danny Bonaducci. And I knew
he was hot back then. He had a hot radio show in Chicago back then.
Yeah, and he also had his own reality show on VH1 that did well. And Danny's one of those people where he's kind of like crazy like a fox or crazy smart. It's like it's a work. It's not for real. It's it's kind of a shtick that he puts on. And once we got, we had Hulk, which made it easy, easier, to get Danny, which made it easier, to get some of the other people that we got. And you also have to,
Jason. So let me interrupt you a few times along the way.
Yep.
So when you say it makes it easier, is it just like, is it confidence? Is it like, well, if Danny Bonaducci does it, because we know he's got a good attorney and he's making big moves right now and he's getting a lot of attention. So hell yeah, I'll do something he's doing. Is it more for the rub, or is it more just on a personal level because they're getting a chance to work with someone they know?
No, it's the first one, not the latter. It's definitely because you want to put some heat on the project. You want it to get some momentum. You want, people to want to also be in the show. And, there's kind of an art form, in doing that, because otherwise, we're sitting there and making those calls and nobody wants to, especially, in Hollywood, nobody really wants to be the first one in, and there's safety in numbers. So it's like some people are going, hey, even if I don't see it right now, that guy's hot and smart, or that gal is hot and smart. So I'm just going to do it because they're doing it. And yeah, I'll get that rub, and maybe they see something in this that I don't see. And I'm going to go, I'm going to go for, I'm going to go for it. The other thing was our pay structure. Even though it was, a reality show and people were guaranteed a certain initial compensation, every episode that they survived, they got, another paycheck. So they got a base, and then they got, bonuses for
it was just basically pay as you go.
Yeah, for not being eliminated. Exactly. And, in managing, those people. So we had Frank Stallone. Okay. We had Aaron Murphy. We had Dustin Diamond. May rest
slow down, man! You're like a racehorse. You're so excited.
Well, I felt bad. You said we've eaten up so much time.
No, we are, but it's with good stuff. But I don't want to skip over some of the cool stuff here. Aaron Murphy. I grew up watching Bewitched. I don't know how old I was. What was that, like 1968, 1969?
Something like that.
Somewhere in there. So I'm probably 14 or 15 years old. But I remember her as a little baby in Bewitched. Right. And now I've got a chance to work with her. I know that people listening to this right now are going, he's getting all excited about Aaron Murphy. Yes, I got really excited about Aaron Murphy. I couldn't wait to meet Aaron Murphy because even though I was 14 or 15, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there, whatever it was still kind of part of my childhood.
Yeah.
Like before I got a driver's license and all I wanted to do was chase women and drink. It was before that. When I was as close to being, kind of pure as possible. And it went off the rails after that. So that still represented kind of part of my, early childhood. So I was really excited to meet her. Here's the best part. She's an absolute sweetheart.
Yeah.
She's the nicest person I've ever met. And I still follow her to this day, and we, stay in touch randomly, but she's a really, really, really nice person.
Yeah. And she had the right attitude. She was pretty game, for going through these challenges.
She was competitive. That's what surprised me about her, Jay, is she was like not when it was time to work out. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, wow, you mean I have to do this? It was like, okay, show me how to do that. She was training, I don't know if Nasty Boy was training her right now.
Or Beefcake, one of the two.
Oh, yeah, either one. God, flip it. How'd you like to have to flip that coin every morning and pick which one you wanted to work with? Oh, my gosh. Dude, talk about flip a coin. Heads you lose, tails you lose, you're just screwed. You're going to get one of these two knuckleheads.
By the way, speaking of knuckleheads, Eric, do you remember during that time when Hulk got his Grateful tattoo, you got your Grateful tattoo, and of course, Mr. Beefcake didn't want to be left out, and he got his Grateful tattoo, except he put one extra L on there, and his was
he misspelled it.
All right, guys, I got to admit, as a small business owner, I paid my fair share of stupid tax along the way. One of the things I did is I trusted my TV and radio reps who had served me well when it came to buying radio and TV. And then they tried to sell me digital, and I fell for it. And I thought, hey, man, this guy knows all about advertising. He knows what he's doing. It turns out those people who work at the radio stations and TV stations who are trying to sell you digital, and what I mean is Hulu ads, Amazon ads, YouTube ads, maybe SEO, maybe pay-per-click, targeted display. Have you heard any of this before? Of course you have. But the people who are pitching that to you, man, they're just trying to make a commission off of you. They don't know what works and what doesn't work. Besides, they find themselves in your office first to sell you radio or TV. This is just to see if they can squeeze you anymore. What you need is a professional. I mean, listen, if you broke your arm, would you run down to Jiffy Lube for a solution? No. So why would you think that you're going to buy digital from a radio company? Why would you buy internet advertising from a TV company? Go with who you know, like, and trust. And for me, that's Eric Nichols at Envision Marketing Consultants. He helped me with my mortgage company, and he can help you too. And I mean, no matter what you're looking for, B2B, retail, food and beverage, manufacturing, nonprofit, even small business owners. I got a buddy of mine who cleans windows. I got another buddy who's got a restaurant. Man, everybody I know is talking about and bragging about all the great work they're getting from my guys at Envision Marketing Consultants. This is a true endorsement for me for Eric Nichols, so much so that when you look for Envision Marketing Consultants, check this out, conradsguy.com. And they got this name because so many of my friends would say, hey, call Conrad's Guy. Hey, I wonder what Conrad's Guy's doing. Well, find out for yourself and grow your business with my buddy. You're going to love him. I'm telling you, go out of your way. Check out Eric Nichols at Envision Marketing Consultants. If you're really trying to grow your business, you're really trying to get it to the next level, just use my guy. Go right now to conradsguy.com. That's CONRADSGUY, conradsguy.com.
So, yeah, quick backstory on that. Hulk and I at the Palms Hotel in Las Vegas for something, some meeting or there was a reason why. I flew in from Phoenix. Hulk flew in from Tampa. So we were there together for a meeting of some kind. I don't remember what the meeting was for. But Hulk was going through some tough times back then. Between his back, what was going on with his son, his wife filing for divorce, everything kind of collapsing all at one time. It was a tough time for him. He's come out of it amazingly well, and I admire him for how he's come out of it.
Same.
And all that. But that was a dark period of time. So I'm with Hulk, and he's trying. I wasn't in any kind of a bad spot, but I felt bad for Hulk, and because I knew what he was going through that a lot of people didn't see or hear about. And I'm trying to prop him up. I'm trying to keep myself propped up, to be very honest about it. He walks by, I can't remember the name of the tattoo shop that was in the Palms, because they had their own TV show for a while.
Hart and Huntington. And Huntington.
He was tight with those guys. He had an apartment or condo at the top, and all that. So he said, come on in, I'm going to get it, grateful on my wrist. And I said, well, hell, me too. So we had probably both down a fair share of beer before that, but we sat there and got those tattoos. But yeah, I remember Brutus.
And you guys are like, look at mine. And he's like, look at mine. And we're like, you spelled it wrong.
Anyway, Aaron Murphy was a sweetheart. But putting that together, how tough was it? How tough was it to get Bonaducci?
Bonaducci, he had some initial questions. His agent at the time, Richard Lawrence, who also represented, Judge Judy. They did, his radio deal, and, everybody comes in and, he wants, $150,000 an episode, $250,000 an episode. We're like, that's not the precedent. So there was some people, it's either a money play or it's a creative play, and or a passion play. And in the art of the negotiation, you really have to know which button you're going to push. Okay. Now, if you have, a huge budget, well, that's great. You can push the money button. And if it happens to be, a passion project, then so be it. And that's wonderful. And you have the best of both worlds. Well, at the time, reality TV was born in a writer's strike. It was born to be almost the disposable camera of entertainment, where they needed to fill those time slots, and they couldn't, do it with like the big budgeted, scripted stuff, because there was a strike going on. So they needed this alternative programming, this reality stuff. Now, people thought it was just going to be a phase. People thought it would just get them through the writer's strike, but little did, they know that it would take off, in the way that it.
Yeah. And you also had Survivor coming in, an international format coming in right around the same time. Yeah. And nobody wanted to buy it. Mark Burnett, give him a lot of credit for this after he got shut down everywhere. Said, screw it, I'll pay for it myself. Went out and sold the sponsorship to offset the expense of the show and bought that show on the air for about 5 minutes until it became a hit. Then that'll change. But it was an interesting time in reality. But again, tie it back into how tough was it to get Danny Bonaducci?
So, his agent and I, because most of these people that were on the show, I've had, a personal relationship with, and usually it would start with, a text or, a phone call. Hey, want to talk to you about this project, see, if you're open to it. And with Danny, the thing that really closed him, because his agent, as a good agent should, it was all about the money. But I have to say that all Danny wanted to do was work with Hulk Hogan. And he literally even said, I would do this for free if it meant getting the chance to work with Hulk.
So how did that get by anybody without getting nailed down?
Yeah, so basically, I told his agent,
he said he'd do it for free. He said,
he's like,
I'm holding you to it.
Exactly. I'm like, he said he wanted to do it for the privilege to work with Hulk. So I ended up having to actually tell Danny, I'm like, your agent is killing me. I'm like, can you please, tell him how important this is to you and how much you want to work with Hulk? And, usually sometimes, talent will hide behind, their agent or their manager because they don't want to be the good guy. They want to be the fun guy, right? But Danny was cool. He was willing to jump in and call his agent and say, hey, just whatever they say, just say yes to it.
All right, let's move it along. We got a lot to talk about. So
Yep.
out of the and we'll talk about each one of them as we go. So nobody's going to get left out of the equation. But within the context of the deal making process, who is the easiest, who is the most difficult, and who is the most fun?
Oh boy, that's a good question.
While you're playing with that, I'm going to take another leak. Have at it.
You got it. I would say that that Dustin, gosh, may he rest in peace. He was difficult to get a deal done with, and he was a little bit difficult to work with behind the scenes. But I think it was because he really cared about professional wrestling, and he was very specific in particular, and he had his own ideas, and we're tasked with executing a certain vision that we sold to the network, and not all the talent is privy to that information. I would say that the most fun would it's kind of a three-way tie with like Bonaducci, Todd Bridges, and Butterbean. Those guys were a ball. Dennis Rodman, of course, was always a lot of fun. And he actually took it seriously when everybody else was goofing around and doing whatever, because we had a gym that was also set up in our CCW compound, which was a old converted Michelin tire factory where they made tires in a very bad part of Los Angeles. That was like 150,000 square feet that we took over for a couple of months. I would say that Todd Bridges
that place was the shit.
It smelled like
that place.
Rubber, remember?
That place was so. It was
terrible.
Huge, and it great in a lot of ways because it had this really cool Fight Club kind of
exactly.
vibe to it.
Yes.
But it was freaking filthy.
Yes, it was.
It was August in LA, not near the water.
That's
which
right.
is a whole different thing about LA. When you're not near the water, it just feels different.
Yeah.
But it works.
But anyway, so Rodman, he took it seriously. We had this gym that we had built in there, and he was working out. He was on the life cycle. He was doing his thing, and I just remembered that he took it pretty seriously. So that was fun, for me to see him take it seriously. Frank Stallone, who's a friend. I love Frank. If Frank sees this, I'm sorry, but he was the biggest baby. I don't want to hurt my neck. I don't want to jump from that scaffolding. I don't want to do that. What do you hit the ropes? The ropes aren't meant to be hit. What are you talking about? And like Brutus and Brian, they would just like kick the shit out of him in training, and he would sit there, with ice packs and gauze and bandages and like. He was just a wreck. I think he was out on out on episode 2 or 1. And you see his Instagram and he's a boxer and and all this tough
bullshit.
And and he was like, "What? You want me to jump? Do you know how high it is off that top rope? What are you crazy?" So but I love Frank. He's a friend, but man, he was not long for this world in this format. And then Trishelle Canatella. She was game. She was a lot of fun. And her and Nikki Ziering, they had a little competition going with each other. So that was definitely fun to watch.
She was hot. I mean, let's just call it out. It is what it is. She was hot. There's more to this casting than who we have in our Rolodex. Okay, we need a really, really hot one. How do we find that?
Well, I'll tell you a quick little behind the scenes story that nobody knows because it didn't happen, but we were this close to getting Khloe Kardashian to be on the show.
Oh, wow. We would have made TV history. You and I would be an extended member of the Kardashian family somehow.
That's right. We could.
That would be fun.
Been. That's right. And
they've ruined more guys' lives than any family that I know.
Well,
if you're a guy and you get within, like cold catching distance of one of those women, you're done. You just say goodbye. Your career, your life, your career, your existence as you know it is just evaporates.
Well, they have built one hell of an empire that you can't argue with.
Yeah, but they can have it, man. I wouldn't want to trade places with those knuckleheads. That's a crazy life. Yeah, I mean, good for them that they're happy with it. I would assume, and I mean, they really have done a magnificent job building an empire based on I don't know, no talent. But
I'll tell you, their mom, Kris Jenner, was actually who I dealt with. And honestly, I gotta say, for all jokes aside, whatever, she couldn't have been sweeter. She couldn't have been more professional.
I'm sure.
And she really tried to make it happen. She was like, I think this could be really good, for Khloe because, no one would expect her to do this. And you got to remember back then, it wasn't this multi-billion-dollar empire. Yes, they had a hot show keeping up with the Kardashian, but it's not like they were getting paid, $1 million.
Yeah, they weren't the Kardashians then that they are now.
Exactly. Correct. So, she was open to it and she was trying to push to make it happen. But, Khloe was a little bit just worried about, hurting herself. And she was very sweet, very professional when I talked to her. And it was like, hey, she's like, maybe if there's a season 2, so that was kind of a fun story. I didn't
know that either. See, that's news to me.
There you go. Breaking news here on 83 Weeks.
I didn't get to have any of those fun kind of cool people calls. I was in the back with Brutus and Nasty Boy Knobs.
Laying out matches.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I got to do.
Hey, wait, don't forget Jimmy Hart, man. You sat on the judging panel with Jimmy Hart.
Oh, baby, baby, baby. I love you, baby. Oh, I just love you. Oh, yeah, everything's wonderful, baby. Oh, it's so wonderful, baby. I give Jimmy Hart crap because he's such a character in real life. I mean, he really is Jimmy Hart. When you see him out on the streets, I don't think he leaves the house without it being obvious he's Jimmy Hart. Of course, that dyed black hair and a goatee and the sunglasses that have the piano kind of rims kind of give it away, even in a crowded environment. But I do say Jimmy is a great human being at heart. He's got an amazing history and life and experiences in the world of wrestling, and he's a good guy.
And he never ages.
It's really easy to have fun with. All right, what else do we want to talk about? What was the most fun part of it for you? We're shooting the shows where it's grueling, it's tough, but it's working. When did you go? Like after you first start, because your first day or two, it's like, oh God, what's going to go wrong next? Because it always does. But when did you finally go? Ooh, I think we're going to pull this one off.
I think when everybody got excited and we did like the first rehearsal and seeing everybody, vibe, and then, seeing them when cameras were not rolling and they're all going over their matches. Because if you remember, Eric, we had 3 wrestling rings. We had the 2 practice ones, and then we had the main event ring where they would, perform their match that they learned that day.
And just so people that aren't familiar with the show, there was a little bit of a competition within the competition because there was Team Nasty Boy and Team Brutus. They were, the coaches were competing. That's why the rings were separated. So they didn't get to watch each other train either, which is another interesting aspect of the show.
Yeah, we really sequestered, them in a great way where we tried to follow our own. Well, we did follow our own rules of our format, which is they're going to train separately. The coaches are in it for bragging rights, and pride, and and whose match, goes over, and, and all that stuff, and the audience reaction. But, I definitely had kind of a few celebratory moments when I would see when cameras were not rolling, even during their lunch hour, when they would be in their respective, training centers, and they were working on their matches.
I know.
And at one point, I was like, I think I think they really want it. Like, they really want to look good. Like, they're really taking this seriously.
And they were having fun, I think, because it was so different than anything else they'd ever done before.
Yes.
This was not like, typical structured reality shows where the producers create an environment and create a situation. And yes, that's technically speaking, there is no script.
That's right.
There's enough construction of artificial situations that are predictable that you get the scene you want. Yeah. This was different than that. This they had to actually participate in. They couldn't call it in.
No, you're right. And by the way, these people are performers, but they're not wrestlers. And I remember the only personal experience I could kind of compare the two is when I did Circus of the Stars. I did the Russian swing act for ABC.
You did what?
Circus of the Stars.
I thought you had said you were hanging out with Russian swingers, and I went, what?
You're ridiculous. Oh my gosh. You're like, I know that place. You're like, it's in Vegas. It's, anyway, no, I said the only thing that I can compare to from a personal experience is when I trained for Circus of the Stars, and I did the Russian swing act, and I had to train. Stop smiling, Eric.
You're never gonna tell this story and say Russian swingers ever again.
Ever again, and I had to train for 8 weeks, and I remember having to take 2 of those weeks off because I couldn't move. So, and I wasn't like hitting a mat. I was on a trampoline, and I, practiced, things on me and blah, 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 and doing flips, but nowhere near like taking bumps, getting clothesline, running the ropes, doing all that stuff. So the more the show went on, the more beat to shit our talent got. And again, these aren't wrestlers. These are actors.
And just to add some sauce to this, there's Todd Keneally in the background. He was our ring announcer, great guy, great play-by-play guy. Don't know why he's never made it to the big show. I think he's got a ton of talent. I got him a spot in TNA for a little while, but it was too late in the game for it to matter. But anyway, the training was way harder than I thought it would be. I mean, Brian and Brutus both physically put this cast through more than I thought they would. And I think they actually put them through more than they thought they would, because I don't think they anticipated a cast to come in and be that willing to dig in and actually do shit that hurts.
You're 1,000% correct. And, you have to remember, even though it was, 8 episodes, it takes a lot more than 8 weeks, to do 8 episodes. So for, a couple of months, these people are, our talent have dedicated themselves, to training every single day, rehearsing their matches, performing their matches, recovering, and going through all of that, training again. And what's funny is a picture that Super Dave showed earlier with Dustin and Danny. When it got towards the end, I mean, I remember like Butterbean, Todd Bridges, Rodman, Bonaducci, Dustin. These guys really wanted it, and there was a physical altercation, on the set between Dustin and Danny. That it certainly wasn't scripted. It was born out of the heat of the moment. And
now Dustin, rest his soul. We lost him, but Dustin, am I correct in saying he was an amateur wrestler?
I don't know. I don't think he did amateur wrestling, but I think he did a couple of appearances for maybe some indie stuff where he did some wrestling.
One of them I found out after the fact had some high school
amateur wrestling experience.
Yeah, some, and maybe I got it wrong, but I thought I remember that. Yeah, they came to play, and look, they were all smart to the reality show business. They understood the goal, the ultimate goal, and knew when they needed to step up in their performance, or depending on the scene that was going on. So there was a, say what you want about, B-listers or whatever, or however people I think disrespectfully tend to classify talent, particularly since most people don't have any. But there was a lot of natural instincts there that we had to work with. It made this unique type of show, meaning a physical narrative as well as the spoken word, it made it possible because this cast had the right attitude. If they would have been like trying to phone it in, or not caring, this show would have shit the bed so bad.
Yeah,
it would have been incredible because there would have been no hiding that.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And I think, to answer your earlier question, when I saw them very, very early on during their, lunch breaks in their, respective training centers going over this stuff, I was like, I think we have something. Because if your cast is into it and they want it, they're going to carry you. To your point, if they phone it in, everyone's going to feel it, and it's really going to be bad.
I think for me, it was seeing the talent the very first time after spending an afternoon training.
Yeah.
Because of the nature, I'm not going to go into the whole format of the show because we'll be here too long and it's not that exciting for people who aren't in the business. But in addition to, that wasn't, I'm making a note. Discussing a format is something you and I could talk about for 2 hours. The average person listening to this would get lost just because it's not interesting unless you do it.
Agreed.
But I went into it with such low expectations only because I didn't know what was and wasn't possible. Sure. So I managed my expectations when it came to what these people were going to be able to do in the ring.
Yeah.
And because I had managed my expectations, I think appropriately, as low as they were, it was appropriate.
I expected nothing.
Yeah, well, a little more. But I know I make jokes about Brian Knobs and Brutus. Well, Brutus, it's not a joke. I'm serious. But with Brian, I make things a joke because I like Brian. He's, despite all of his flaws, he too has them, like all of the rest of us. But he's a really good guy at heart. Believe it or not, he gets in his own way, but he really is a good heart. But both he Brutus put in a lot of effort and really stepped up and over-delivered.
Yeah. Way
over-delivered on even Hulk's expectations, because Hulk had more confidence in them than I did. But man, they both really over-delivered.
Well, and here's the thing. I gained, so when you were like, and Hulk was saying, okay, answering to the network and their format, like, hey, we need 2 coaches. We need 2, captains for this, right? And, you just kept referring to it in the way you were like, okay, and they're going to, captain and coach these teams, whatever. I like in my head, I knew what that meant, but I didn't know what it entailed. Okay. And those guys because they had to lay out, several different matches, like a day, for these people.
And then learn how to, and then the talent who had no previous experience had to know how to perform that match in front of a live audience.
Yeah. And I got a whole entire new respect for both of those guys for the role that they really played. So, because that could have been, by the way, where it fell apart. So it's like, okay, we've got a cast, their game, they're going to give us everything and maybe even a little bit more because some of them, all of them, they want this. Okay, but then who are the coaches? Because they're only going to shine, as good as, because, you have to, it's that balance. You got to make the match for their limited ability, and there has to be spots where they shine. It has to be entertaining with a limited move set, and they were going through those matches, and then they had to train each one of those, couples, or teams, whatever, separately.
And
It-
yes, just
and
like on live TV, we had to hit our times.
That's right. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, you're right. I'm glad that you took a pause and really saluted those guys' efforts, because if we had the wrong coaches in that spot, that's where we would have really fallen down.
Yep, because it could have gone bad. So when the first time I saw, when we shot live, because these guys were training right up until an hour before showtime. I mean, we were really cramming a lot of preparation and pre-production into a day before they even got dressed to go out in front of the ring.
That's right.
It was tight. And they were training right before showtime. Finally, it's live. We got a live studio in there. It wasn't like 800 people, but there was probably a good 7,500 people in there. It's still live.
Yeah.
And they go out there, and I was shocked at what a great job they did. I was shocked.
Yeah. And remember, also in between the training, we had challenges like, okay, in this episode, you're going to pick your wardrobe for your character,
That's
and
right.
you're going to have to do like a promo. So we kind of, broke down some of the things, in wrestling, from going to promo school, creating, your character and your wardrobe. So we had them doing a bunch of shtick, in between they're learning to do the matches. They had a lot going on.
Yeah, they did. What was we're going to wrap this up here, and not the show. We're going to wrap this discussion up about the Hulk Hogan Championship Wrestling before we segue into some real Q&As. I know there were a lot of people sending in questions, and we didn't get to a lot of them because I didn't want to interrupt the flow of this conversation, to be honest with you. It was too much fun. It was too good. So before we wrap up this part of the conversation, what's your one favorite takeaway? What did you enjoy? What now do you enjoy looking back the most about that experience?
I think that I had the opportunity to take something that was personally meant a lot to me, still means a lot to me. And, it was something, like I said, that my father and my brother and I, came together. So to wrap up, a personal passion, with a business opportunity, and then do it, with you, my partner, my brother, who I love, with Hulk, our partner, our brother, who I love, with some of the cast that, were, friends of mine, some of, the BHE staffers, that we worked with. It was just kind of like,
we had a good team. We had some good people on our crew.
Yeah, we really did. It was just like a coming together of and as a matter of fact, on that show, my son worked on it. My cousin David worked on it as the first AD, Howard's son. So it was just like a coming together, of personal and professional interests, converging in this really fun business opportunity.
Very cool. Very cool. So let's take a couple questions. We got a lot of them. Super Dave, you got some stacked up here.
Yeah,
Travis Midway. Travis is my guy. He lives over in the UK. He stays up. He does things all the time. Hi, guys. I've sensed a change in how the public sees celebrities since the pandemic and their political preaching. Do you think a modern day CCW would spawn some great heels if they played up to that? What's your take, Jay? I'll give you mine.
When he says spawn some great heels, Eric, you got to answer that one. Do I think there could be, a fun climate in which we brought a version of this show back? Yes. But do I think it would be more than what that is? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Yeah, I look, Travis, that's a great question. And look, political heat is like cheap heat. It's easy. It doesn't take much creativity to generate a reaction. It's really simple to come down strong, make a big, bold statement, and know that at least half the audience is going to hate you and half the audience is going to probably agree with you. And that's exactly how professional wrestling works. The unfortunate part, though, I think, is that people have had so much. They're so full of it. They're so tired of it.
Yeah.
They don't want any more uncomfortable political divisiveness or any conversation when they make the choice to be entertained. I myself will make a choice to do a deep dive into current events because I'm choosing to spend my time, however brief that may be or long that may be, because I am interested in something and I feel a need to get that information. But once I go, okay, I'm done with that information. Now I want to be entertained. Do not try to get political with me. No matter, even if I agree with you, I'm going to turn the other way.
Right.
It's not what I'm in the mood to hear. And I think that's the risk when you use things that are pop cultural, hot, controversial, if it's going to be involved in wrestling generally. You take a big risk, and I don't think the risk is worth the reward. I wouldn't do it. But great question. I appreciate that, man.
Thank you.
AOTV Productions says, hey, Eric, what's your favorite thing about Jason? I was telling my wife this earlier today. Jason and I haven't worked together since, about 2015, 16, somewhere in there. And
I think it's more like 17 because I think Dope Man for age.
Yeah. But by then we weren't really working as close together as we did when we started out. When we started out, we did everything together. We were in each other, we were in all the pitch meetings, all the development. We did everything together. And then we got bigger, and Jason kind of took over one side. I kind of took over another side, and we were still operating as a team, but in independent kind of.
And we'd meet once a week in Orlando.
yeah, to do wrestling, which was the common denominator.
Right.
But anyway, let's move on to the next questions. Oh, what did I like about Jason?
Hold on.
Tell my wife. Yeah, Jason, wait a minute, dude. No, is that amazing balance that I've already referred to once in the show. In my life, I've known a lot of people who are really, really, really smart people. So smart that they're almost in that special category. They don't really have a creative corpuscle in their bloodstream. I've known a lot of people who are super creative. Couldn't run a Kool-Aid stand. Jason's one of those unique characters that's got both a right side, left side brain going on and has equal kind of equal energy and talent, both on the creative side and the business side. And that is a very rare combination. Very rare combination. So that's aside from the fact that we can just, we think alike a lot of times creatively. If we're trying to come up with an idea, if we're formatting an idea, if we're taking a big, broad idea, breaking it down into little pieces and trying to figure out how to put it back together in a way that makes sense, we work really well together in that environment. And Jason's better with people. Jason, I don't like dealing with people. I just don't. When it comes, I like hanging with people and having fun with people. But when it comes to negotiating or, if I can't get somebody to see what I want them to see and I have to, spend way too much time working at it, it's like, rather not do it. And that sounds arrogant, but one of the reasons I like working with Jason is because if I push it, and he still wasn't giving in, I knew he was right. A lot of times, if you don't have that confidence, and sometimes it's just faith and confidence, because I just don't see it. I see it the way I see it. I'm 100% sure I'm right. No one's going to convince me I'm wrong, but Jason sees it a different way. There comes a time when no matter how right you think you are, you got to go, okay, I could be wrong, and I trust his instincts too.
And it works both ways.
It does. And it does. And that's the magic when you find that kind of a working relationship, because nobody's going to always be right. I don't care who the fuck you think you are. You're wrong. You're never going to always be right. And when you can surround yourself with people who you trust, and I mean trust, I don't mean trust by like I don't want to leave my wallet in the room with them. I mean trust like instinct trust.
Right.
That's when the magic happens. Okay, another question. Micah Byrne, do you all have a sales process? If so, what is it? I don't. I just start winging shit.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, you go in, look, you know what you're selling. More often than not, Jason, you can speak to this. Go into a little bit of detail, not much, but a little bit of detail of just kind of your psychology when you walk into a room with a buyer and you're presenting an idea they have yet to see. It hasn't been pre-pitched by your agent or anybody else. You're walking in cold, but you've got something you want to get them interested in. How do you approach it?
I think you always have to try to find something that you can point to in a similar space that has success. Okay. And I'll just give, you said make it brief. So I'm gonna make it brief. I'll just give two quick answers. Um, I'll start with the easiest one first. Sons of Anarchy was, a massive hit for FX. Okay. So the thought was, what can we emulate in reality television that could be our version of an unscripted Sons of Anarchy? And
So
then
in other words, for the layman's out there, Jason, I'm just having fun with this. You're doing a great job, but I
okay,
gotta just have some fun with it. So in other words, this is Hollywood speak for some people would call it an homage. Other people would say, fuck, they got a good idea. How can I take that and make it mine? Right?
sure, that works.
Because that's how the networks think.
Yeah,
They want their
exactly.
version of that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And it's same story, different instance. VH1, we had this show that Montana worked on a bunch of our shows, but she really helped me prepare for the pitch, and she was my right hand. It was called Beverly Hills Fabulous, about an African American hair salon owner in Beverly Hills.
Great people.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah. And basically there was a show on Bravo called Blowout, and VH1 had yet to do one. And their bent at that time was, was urban. So it was taking something from another network that worked and putting it a spin that made it right for them. So if you can always point to something that works somewhere else and bend it and then shape it as your own and pitch to them, it's better than, having no accolades to point it to and go, I know this is a crazy idea.
Well, it's funny because there's a fine line, and we're going to get to more questions in just a minute. So don't think we're done on the questions yet. I promise we're going to get right back to questions in the next 30 seconds. But there's such a fine line between. Oh, you know what? I'm going to get into the weeds.
No,
Let's shift gears.
you were gonna say there's a fine line between being original and being derivative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But here's okay. Now I can't help it.
Go.
And everybody that's ever listened to me on this podcast probably knows about exactly what I'm going to say right now. This is why I was hesitating to say it. But it's so much just about stories, and stories about formulas. And once you figure out the formula, the ingredients that combined within a certain trajectory and period of time throughout the course of the arc of a story, the telling of a story, once you figure out what those elements are, you can interchange your own ideas into them. You can make those elements of a story work for you. So you can look at Sons of Anarchy, which is what we did, right? In creating a scripted version of the Sons of, or a non-scripted version of the Sons of Anarchy. You're seeing all the elements of that fictional story, and now you're going, okay, we need this element, this element, this element, this element.
Yeah.
And if we combine it all together, we can put it against this completely different narrative and background.
Right.
A completely different type of cast.
Right.
And it's going to feel like Sons of Anarchy, but it's going to be unique enough in its own ways that it feels original. That's a very fine line.
Yes.
And when you find it, you win.
Yes, well said.
If you go too far one way or the other,
it's a copycat, or this is crazy.
You're going to wish you didn't do it.
Yep. Bingo. Well,
all right, a couple more questions here, man. James Sorensen. James is a good dude, man. He's with us all the time. You probably saw him last time we were down with us in Huntsville or wherever we were together. Thoughts on producing today? Is it more difficult to pitch and get a show sold on the air? And Jason, give Mrs. B's podcast a listen over at We're Talking Ship. Thank you for that, brother. I appreciate you, James. What do you think? You're still pitching shows?
Yeah. The pitch isn't the problem. It's are they buying? It's so pitching. It's in some ways it's harder. In some ways nothing has changed, but what has changed is the marketplace. to a large degree.
Right.
And, a lot of it's funny, there's, and Eric, taught me this, there's a pendulum, right? And, there's when, there's going to be a whiplash, right? When it goes like either, all scripted, all reality. And basically right now, there has been more and more and more scripted shows
Yeah.
that are
That's
taking
been
some of
happening
those
for about
reality
10
slots.
years.
Yeah, it has been happening for a while. And now where there used to be more reality slots, available to, backfill in some of that programming, it's flopped now the other way because it's dominated now more by scripted.
Yeah, but even reality, that category that you and I always, when we were working together, everybody knew what you meant when you said a reality show category. But now even reality has broken down into kind of subcategories.
Yeah, docs.
In doc dramas,
Yeah.
biodocs, and
Yes.
all these, and all of it is more based. The doc is the common denominator, short for documentary.
That's right.
It's that documentary approach to the format and the storytelling. That's what's making. I mean, sure, you've got a couple of your big tentpole, competition elimination shows. Survival's still out there, and all the big ones are still there.
Yes.
And there's some little goofy ones, but for the most part, non-scripted is becoming increasingly popular. What little real estate is left for it is getting eaten up by the biodocs, doc drama kind of formats.
Yeah, which still falls under the alternative unscripted bucket, right? So, today's pitches are more documentaries, docu-style, types of shows, as opposed to, Hardcore Pawn Chicago, as opposed to,
And those are transactional shows. That category is, that subcategory is a transactional show. So you're seeing somebody come in that's got something, they don't know what it's worth. This is the magic of a format, because when you figure this shit out, when you find a format that hasn't been done before, but you can figure out a way to make it work for television, that's when you start looking for islands in the South Pacific, right? It's the format is the key.
100%.
And if you can create one and copyright it and get all the rights to it, you're making money for a long, long time.
100%.
Anyway, okay. More questions. And the margins, by the way, margins are way different now than they used to be. Holy crap.
Agreed.
Sometimes I used to think, to keep this question up there, I'm going to get to it. Sometimes when you and I were working together towards the end, because, we sold Hulk Hogan's Championship Wrestling, we sold for $750,000 an hour. This was a pretty good budget, right?
Times eight.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a big deal. And now you got to fight for $300,000 an episode. Right. Oh, and it needs to look like, I don't know, National Geographic. We want network standards on a local cable television budget.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Finding that space, because now you got to fight for that space in between.
Right.
You don't want to say, no, I can't do it. I can't do it for that budget, because now you're walking away from a deal.
Exactly. That's right.
So you try to convince them all along the way to squeeze that budget, squeeze that budget. And it's such a brutal fight and process. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why, to this day, when anybody says to me, hey, I've got a TV idea for you, I go, really? I know a guy. Let me give you his name or number. Except for lately, some good stuff has been coming my way, and you know about that. You're involved in it and been blessed in that regard. I'm grateful for it. But it's been a long time since I've been excited about something like that. Next question. What do we got? Any chance BHE produces future? Oh, the Luger movie. Let me tell you about the Luger movie, because this came to me and I talked about it. I put it out into the universe the other day while I was doing a live interview with Lex Luger, talking about the Hall of Fame. Okay. So I don't know what's going to go on there, Jason. I'm just going to talk. I'm shooting from the hip.
Yeah, go.
But I'm feeling this one.
Okay.
Now we're riffing. Okay. This is 2000, and I'm going to pick 5. That was a fun year. So I'm interviewing Lex. We're talking, and he's so excited. It's just an amazingly human story and a great story. And the subject naturally comes up: who's going to induct Lex into the Hall of Fame? Now, I don't know who wouldn't immediately go to Sting, So I don't know. I don't want to put any pressure on the situation. I don't have any information. It's just so freaking obvious. Anybody would say it. So it's Sting. Now I know Sting. I know Steve Borden. I know his personal journey a little differently than most people do.
Yeah.
And Lex's story and journey is one that we all know because we read about it in the paper. It was everywhere. But now these two guys who started out in the business together, an odd business, neither one of them really wanted to be in the first place. That's their kind of common ground. Steve Borden was kind of like, I guess if I have to, because I can't really play professional sports, and the surfing thing's not going to pay off. So yeah, maybe. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my impression. Lex didn't even want to get into the business. He just did because he had to make money. So these two come together, these two characters, neither one of them wanted to be in the world they were in, but they jumped in anyway. And then you follow their careers, the absolute stardom. They own a gym together. They're like family. They're brothers. They have everything's perfect in their life from the outside. And then they both, for different reasons, go downhill pretty fast and lose in different ways, different reasons, different universes, but the end result is the same, and had to rebuild their lives together. And I think Luger's story, they're both equally powerful. One is they're both relatable, but I think Luger's story is just so dramatic because of you went from Lex Luger to not. And that mental thing and losing Elizabeth, going to jail, being the drugs, the whole 9 yards, and then finding his faith, much like Steve Borden did, and seeing these two guys in this redemption period of their lives coming together over the very thing that neither one of them wanted to be involved with in the first place, but it's ultimately changed their lives. I think that's a movie.
I do too.
I think if somebody doesn't pitch that movie and sell that movie, they're doing a disservice to the entertainment business. Now, I don't know if it's going to be us. I don't know if it's going to be somebody else, but somebody needs to pitch that movie because there's just too much good story there.
I like that. I think that has so many amazing elements, and the real story has this natural arc, and it has all of the emotions that you.
So if we can copyright this conversation, because I own this, Conrad and I own the 83 Weeks YouTube channel together.
You did. The pitch is documented.
So we just created this treatment.
The framework. That's right.
We have the outline for treatment.
Yes.
Which I will be able to fill in using AI while I'm eating dinner tonight. So that we can copyright it, because that's fast and easy, doesn't cost a lot of money, and it's a proof of concept and date and time that we can always lean back to if anybody else steals this idea out from underneath us. We've got a record now of the intellectual property that was developed as a part of doing this show, which makes it a legally and binding piece of property. So
that's right.
Fuck off if you think you're going to steal this idea. All right, Jay, I got to go, brother.
Let's work on it.
I got to go. Yeah, we can have some fun with this. And I'm actually not kidding, because this whole AI thing, I don't know about you, brother, but I've been playing around with this stuff for about a year now.
Oh, I'm having a ball.
And it is mind-numbingly fascinating.
It's amazing.
I'm going to be taking a class from MIT, an online course, because I want to really get smart about this stuff. I don't want to be reading about other people being smart with it. I want to be the smart son of a bitch that figures out how to make money with it.
Okay, wait, Eric, real quick. Do you remember one time years ago where you and I thought we were the smartest guys in the world, and we were like, okay.
What? That was all the time. Fuck.
You're like, that was this morning.
When did that not happen?
That was this morning. No, but Eric, remember when you and I were like, if we could take the network needs list and put it like into some software program that would take all that data and then tell us back what's the perfect show. Dude, that's Grok, that's ChatGPT. It exists.
We thought of it first. We just didn't have that, thing called education or experience.
All those things.
But we had the instinct. Brother, it was a good instinct getting you to do the show. Thank you very much. We'll do it again sometime. For all of you watching, thank you so much. I love doing this shit live. It's awesome. It's awesome to have you there. God bless all of you. We'll talk to you soon. Super Dave and Ant, thank you very much. I'm out.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-free shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.